Hey, Bob, we're here. Microsoft Ignite in the fall of, what is it?
2022.
All the years have kind of merged together.
It's 3 years, right, since Microsoft Ignite's been back in person. So it's great to be back again here at this event and
Why
to see.
Why are you here?
I know. Yeah, you would think I would come to one of these events and talk about SQL.
Right.
Actually, Rob, one of the things we want to do at this event is talk about just modernizing data for customers. And with this concept we call SQL cloud to edge, edge to cloud, however you want to spin it.
Yep.
And think about, I've been here 29 years now. SQL now exists. We've got the new version SQL 2022 that's coming up. But it exists on premises, it exists on Azure SQL Edge on IoT devices, it's Linux, containers, Kubernetes, it's Arc-MI, and it's even in the cloud. So it exists in all different form factors. And most customers I talk to, it's not a or decision, it's an and decision. They want to put it everywhere. So they need a consistent engine, consistent tool set, language, so forth. So that's a little bit what we're doing here at this event is kind of talking through those technologies and seeing how customers, can that meet their needs to modernize their data looks like.
I love you talked about the tooling and look and feel because I get asked that a lot. I mean, you mentioned all those different locations where Dell has solutions to run SQL Server. But I'm asked if I'm running SQL and Linux with Kubernetes or even using AKS and HCI, what are the tools I use? Well, it's the same one.
Like Management Studio.
Yeah,
I always use that one as a basis, right? Even though Azure Studio is a new tool we've got out there. But did you know that SSMS can connect to everything I just said?
Right.
And it recognizes where you are, but the look and feel is the same. So yeah, that familiarity is really important to folks, I think.
You know what I love to talk about too is that how to get to that modern SQL. So maybe you mentioned the SQL MI. What is that? Managed instance from Azure Arc-enabled data services.
Right.
And we at Dell have done a lot of testing, even with Microsoft, co-branding some papers. And we talk about how to really get to that next level, how to modernize your SQL Server to be really true DB as a service, actually realized. And eventually it'll be, this evergreen SQL. It will be SQL 2022. And hopefully that's going to be at some point. We don't know when that's officially going to be announced, right?
Rob, we're not going to miss the name. I'll get fired. Okay. So, hey, it's October now, right?
It is.
So, yeah, but before the end of this year, we'll definitely have general availability of 2022. Very excited to see that happen.
Got it.
But you talk about Arc-MI. Our whole goal was customers told us, I want Azure SQL MI, but I want to put it in the infrastructure of my choice. Like I want to use my Dell assets and run a database as a service. Can I get versionless and auto backup and all those kind of type things? And that's what Azure Arc SQL MI is all about. It's a SQL server, but it is a platform as a service, right? Using containers, using Kubernetes, but again, running on the data state that somebody already owns, like a Dell infrastructure.
Right. And when 2022 is actually released, you have all that goodness right there in a container. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Think about all the stuff that 2022 is going to bring. I mean, hybrid, first of all, is a big pitch for us. Disaster recovery to Azure, analytics to Azure, Purview for governance, but all the goodness that the engine brings, right? Built-in query intelligence, trying to solve all these query problems that people struggle with all the time.
With no code changes.
With no code changes. I taught you that, Rob, very well. Thanks for doing that. But also just think about crazy stuff like Ledger. SQL has a blockchain now inside the engine, centralized, automatically built in just by saying, I want a ledger table. Or solving some crazy SQL problems that people struggle with, like TempDB latching, contained availability groups, parameter sniffing. Yeah. We're really going after a lot of customer scenarios that people have said for years, I just struggle with this stuff. Can you just actually fix some of these things for me? So we really do have that baked into the engine.
Yeah, it's exciting. I've seen, I started with 6.5, right? And every version, every time a new one comes out, I get excited about SQL Server. Again, this one, no exception. There's so many really cool things that come in the box with SQL Server, unlike no other engine out there.
But one thing that gets not a lot of attention is data virtualization and object storage, right? So, Polybase is something you've seen before. We've talked about that in the past. 2019 brought in ODBC services, those kind of things. But now we decided to put more of a lightweight approach like a REST API in the engine and then allow you to get like Parquet and Delta. Like go after the lakehouse scenarios, right? Use SQL as that query hub to go after Parquet, sitting maybe like in a Dell ECS system or something, right?
Yeah.
Because people are starting to use object storage, right, as a common mechanism to store a bunch of data. They don't want to copy it into SQL Server, so let me just access it where it lives. So I love that pitch that we have now for data virtualization in 2022.
Yeah, and Dell has, I put a paper on it with SQL and ECS around the use cases there. And a really cool use case also is we have data growing exponentially in SQL Server in an RDBMS.
Right.
Maybe it's read only. Maybe it's just static data that's just there because we need to query it maybe every once in a while. Why don't we offload that, maybe using something like CCAS, just to drop it into S3.
Yeah, like export it, right?
Export it and leave it there and make your RDBMS smaller. Then you have more efficient backups, more efficient cache. There's a lot of really benefits there to doing that correctly. So a little bit of re-architecture, but in the end, not a lot, because we're still using T-SQL to query all the same data.
It's an important paradigm for us because not only are we allowing you to offload read workloads into these object storage systems, but we realized that that is a common format, like Parquet or Delta, in those systems for other purposes.
And it's fast.
Right? So, yeah, why not just keep SQL where it is, the data is relational there, use the SQL engine still like an external table, open row set or something, and go after data, keep it where it lives, but then that lakehouse is now available for all the other purposes that are great for lakehouses, like data science scenarios, machine learning scenarios, other scenarios where analytics need to be run on that, but in a format that's becoming a little more popular than just a relational format.
And, I see emerging use cases with clients where other teams, maybe they don't use T-SQL. I wish they would, but maybe they don't.
Right.
Maybe they're using other mechanisms to get to
Spark,
that same data.
right?
Yes.
That kind of thing, yeah.
So that data still sits in one location. You're solving kind of for your governance right there out of the gate.
Right.
And with our systems that we have for S3, we can put all the role-based access controls on top of that, so we know who has access to what, which is super awesome. And then everybody can compete, or everybody can connect to that same data and query it the way they want to query it.
Yeah, but think about the power of SQL still. So, like, you'll have SQL Server users still that can use an external table in the engine, where the metadata is in the engine, but like Parquet is sitting in your system. Yeah. And so they're querying external table. They don't even know they're going after Parquet data, right? To me, it looks like a table. And then I can put permissions on top of that and all the goodness that SQL brings as a great query processing database engine. But again, put data in a system that can be used by other applications.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's exciting times. We know that Microsoft's not going to miss a date. And again, I'm looking at my watch. It's somewhere.
Hey, we're going to be back here, I think, soon, right?
We are.
There's a thing called the Past Data Community Summit, Rob. Yes. Are we both going to be here for that?
We are.
Yeah. I'm
You've
excited.
got a bunch of demos. I've got some demos to show. It's going to be
Rob,
fun.
I have a pre-con in like 5 or 6 sessions. I mean, I'm going to be like busy the whole time. But I'm so excited because it is our community coming back together, again for the first time in person, at this same venue, getting a chance to talk about all the goodness of SQL.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait. It's exciting. It's going to be a lot to do here in the next
I know.
Few weeks. Let's just say that. A lot to get done. Demos to get ready and polish up, so that's going to be fun.
It was great to see you again. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.